Hello and welcome everybody. We have already done a separate video on a Scarlet Witch's powers. But this video is all about that time when she went insane and we got to see her most dangerous powers. Something that is also happening in the WandaVision series on Disney+. How crazy and twisted is this Scarlet Witch? Well, let me just say that she ends up killing Vision, who was her husband at that time. And this was not something like the sacrifice that we saw in the Avengers Infinity War, but rather it was a cold-blooded murder. So before we get started, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon so that you will never miss an upcoming update. And with that out of the way, let's get started. In the MCU, till now Scarlet Witch seems like a competent character who seems to be in control all the time. Well, that is not the case in Marvel Comics. Due to nature of her powers, as well as her traumatic childhood, Scarlet Witch is very unstable. Because of this, when things start to go bad, Scarlet Witch at times easily breaks down and ends up causing a lot of damage. Although, sometimes she is able to get hold of herself and keeps moving on as nothing happened. But her most insane display of power came in Avengers Disassembled storyline, which led to the House of M storyline. Created by Brian Michael Bendis and David Finch, Avengers Disassembled changed the Avengers forever. In this storyline, Wanda Maximoff's reality-bending powers have been causing her to grow mentally unstable. She was struggling to keep things together and it was taking a mental toll. She ends up using her powers to get herself pregnant with twin kids. And if you saw the WandaVision episode 2, then it does happen there too. So maybe this season is going down this storyline. So basically Wanda gets pregnant, although her husband at that time was Vision, who was proud of her wife and his sons. But this unusual couple didn't get to spend much time with their children, as the twin sons were taken away from them by the demons. This brought down Wanda's imaginary house of cards, which eventually toppled when she found out that her husband's memories, that is Vision's, were unexpectedly deleted. At this point, Wanda's former mystical mentor Agatha Harkness attempted to protect Wanda from her trauma by blocking out any memory of her kids. But secrets can only be withheld for so long. Wanda goes through a psychotic breakdown after she discovers the truth about the two children she once had, and the fact that her mentor had kept things away from her. With her fragile mental state now completely off the charts, Dr. Doom takes advantage of the situation and convinces Wanda to go after the Avengers, which she does. The Avengers are attacked at a time when they were least expecting it. Out of nowhere there is a huge explosion at the Avengers mansion, which ends up killing Scott Lang, aka the Ant-Man. However, it is later revealed that he was actually saved by his daughter, who uses the time machine to take him into the future, just before the explosion. Anyways, the Avengers take it for granted that Ant-Man is dead. Before Avengers could figure out what this enemy was that they were supposed to fight, Vision arrives in a Quinjet and smashes through whatever was left of the Avengers mansion. Wanda's reality-shifting mental breakdown had many disastrous consequences for the Avengers, including the superhero team being officially disassembled. But the killing of her own former husband was the cruelest of all. Scarlet Witch tricked the Avengers into believing that Ultron had implanted an attack program within Vision from the very start. And since Vision was created by Ultron, which is what also happens in the MCU, Vision had a rough history with getting his fellow teammates to accept him. The Avengers couldn't help but feel slight suspicion towards Vision. But with Wanda's manipulation, the Avengers came to believe that what they had feared was a reality, and thus Vision ends up being murdered by his former wife, Scarlet Witch, which without doubt counts as one of the most ruthless deaths till date in the history of Marvel Comics. But finally Doctor Strange arrives on the scene a few days later and reveals that it is Scarlet Witch who is behind all this, and thus they need to do something about her. But at this point, the official Avengers team was already dissolved, something like what happened in the movie Captain America Civil War. Doctor Strange along with other heroes decide to talk to Scarlet to understand what needs to be done. But most of the heroes along with Wolverine decide that she is too dangerous to exist and she must be killed to save the world. Death of Scarlet Witch was meant to be the only thing that can save the world from her insanity. But before the heroes could do anything, the world changes in a flash, and nothing is same again. Every superhero in this reality is living their dream life. In this new reality, Spider-Man is a celebrity and is married to Gwen Stacy. Cyclops and Emma Frost are married. Doctor Strange is a psychologist. Carol Danvers is Captain Marvel and is America's most beloved superhero. And Steve Rogers is an aged veteran. And none of them remember the old reality except Wolverine. Somehow Wolverine convinces few other heroes that this reality that they were living in was a lie, created by Scarlet Witch. And thus they move to House of M, where she lived along with his father, Magneto. Wanda's brother Quicksilver tries to reason with Magneto, but Magneto ends up killing him. This enrages Wanda, and after bringing her brother back to life, she decided she had enough. Her own father was more concerned with mutant supremacy rather than her and his children, and thus she utters the infamous 3 words, "No more mutants," which destroyed this utopian House of M reality and restores back the old reality, but with one huge change. 90% of the mutants of the world no longer had their powers, which resulted in numerous deaths across the globe. The mutant population went from millions to less than 200, making mutants an endangered species. This event came to be known as the M-Day, and was one of the most catastrophic days in Marvel's history. After the events of House of M, Avengers and Doctor Strange looked for Wanda, but she was nowhere to be found. After a few years, she was discovered living and engaged with Doctor Doom, but she had lost all her past memories and her reality-bending powers. She had no recollection of the horrors that she had ushered over the world. We finally see playing Wanda a key role again in a stopping of the Phoenix-possessed X-Men during Avengers vs. X-Men event, as well as aiding Hope Summers bring mutants back to the world. And thus, with time and some restitution, she was forgiven for her past blunders. But not everybody was so forgiving. And with that, we will bring this video to an end. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.